Let me invite Mr. Vijaykumar Kannan, IT General Manager Shell, to discuss how they are driving business value through customer centricity at Shell. He has done his MBA from IIM Lucknow and holds total experience of 16 plus years in IT and supply chain. He was the CIO of Hindustan Unilever South Asia before joining Shell. Please join me in welcoming him on the stage.
Thanks, Nikita, for the warm welcome, and thank you guys for having me here today. I heard yesterday went off really well, and I wish and hope that today is also going to be a great and exciting day for all of you. So what I'm going to try and do over the next about 30 minutes or so is basically talk to you about what we as Shell do, give you some insights about how the whole energy sector is moving, and more importantly, how we as Shell are transforming ourselves to becoming a far more customer-centric company, and the role that IT and more specifically all of you as business analysts and the BA community play in helping powering this transformation, right? So before I start off, obviously there are going to be quite a few forward-looking statements that's going to be made. There are some interpretations of the future that's going to be done, so it's very, very important that we start off with a definition and cautionary note so that I'm not put behind bars for any of the stuff that's being mentioned. So let's look at maybe a short video that's going to help you understand what Shell is all about.
Fast forward to 2050. The world's population has grown to 9 billion. That's 2 billion more people added to the planet over the last 40 years. In addition, millions of people are enjoying a better standard of living, so energy demand has shot up, doubling our current rate. At the same time, scientists believe that CO2 emissions will need to be halved to avoid serious climate change. What's shaping that future? Millions of people across the developing world are improving their quality of life. They're buying their first fridge, computer, or car. If we all continue to use energy the way we do today, energy demand by 2050 could rise by even more, perhaps as much as 3 times the current rate. Shell scenario planners think a big gap between energy supply and demand could emerge. That gap will have to be closed, either by demand being forced down, or supply being ramped up, or some mix of both. But just how that will happen is uncertain. So, the world will face a zone of uncertainty. We will have to draw on many different sources of energy to meet our needs. By 2050, a third of the global energy mix could come from renewables. Fossil fuels and nuclear power are likely to make up the rest. The future will also call for greater energy efficiency and more lower CO2 options. How is Shell responding? The challenge is a big one, which the world will have to tackle together. At Shell, we're working with partners to deliver more energy, investing heavily over the next few years to develop new sources of oil and gas. We are producing more natural gas, which represents cleaner energy, as it emits up to 70% less carbon dioxide than coal in power plants. We are developing smarter energy through products and services that help our customers get the most out of the energy they use, boosting efficiency and cutting their CO2 emissions. Innovation from Shell, helping meet the world's growing energy needs in a responsible way.
Okay, so that would have given you quite a bit of insight into how the energy sector is moving. Right? It spoke about how from a current population of about 7 odd billion, by 2050, the population is going to explode to over 10 billion, and by 2070 is going to cross 11, 12 billion, right? Now, what does all of this mean? That means that the amount of energy that is going to be consumed and going to be required by all of us as individuals and the businesses that we operate is only going to increase. And I'm just probably going to draw your attention to some of the folks who are probably as old as me, which I don't think is a lot in the room, when I was a kid, when a child used to cry, the most obvious tool that any mom would probably get to was this thing called Woodward's gripe water. I don't know if you have heard that as an example, right? Whereas what happens now? It's a Peppa Pig cartoon on an iPad or a mobile. So just using that example, you know how much of penetration and deep connection that all of us have made with technology and digital. And what does that mean? All of these digital innovations that's been proliferating around us all need energy, right? You need power to power all of those. The number of connected devices is a staggering 17 billion right now. It includes devices, mobile phones, laptops, etc., as well as various different industrial machines, which are now becoming far more and more connected into the digital ecosystem. All of this needs energy. There are more people flying around as compared to 10 years back, and the future of mobility and transportation is going to transform going into the future. So if you look at the whole changing energy ecosystem and the consumption of energy, it is one quite daunting for us to know, because you need to start creating and producing energy which is going to be in a position to meet all of these different energy needs. But at the same time, we also have a big ambition and responsibility to ensure that the energy that we produce is clean, so that we are not adding additional carbon dioxide back into the environment. So you would have heard of maybe the Paris Agreement, which is basically saying that by 2070, we would need to ensure that the global climate change or the temperature increase is contained well below 2 degrees. And that would call for a much different energy ecosystem than what is out here. So when you bring all of them together, that pretty much plays to the purpose and strategy of what Shell is all about, which is making sure that we power progress together. So we are fully committed to making sure that we bring those energy sources in a clean and responsible manner into the community, so that we can flourish and prosper and do all the great things that we want to do by consuming that energy. This slide, I know it's a bit of a busy slide. It calls out how the energy ecosystem and the portfolio of energy sources will change its mix over a period of time, or should change its mix over a period of time. So as you see, right now and historically, the fossil fuels, which is predominantly coal and oil and gas, used to be the biggest sources of energy. But as we start going forward, if we need to make sure that those energy systems are cleaner and greener, it needs to move towards a far more electric, far more conventional renewable sources of power that we generate. Now this calls for a change in business strategy and making sure that we as Shell play this energy transition of moving away from just being a pure oil and gas player into an integrated energy ecosystem player going forward. So what does all of this mean, and where does customer centricity come in? Now, before I start talking more about what is customer centricity and why is it important for us, let's spend a few minutes hearing about customer centricity from some of the leaders in Shell.
Shell today is the #1 retailer in mobility. You know, we have 30 million customers come into our retail sites every day. We have 44,000 retail sites across the globe in 70 countries. So I think I always say that everything starts with the customer, understanding the customer. We play in all aspects of mobility. whether it's the private customer, whether it's the major haulier, whether it is shipping, whether it is aviation. So we are a very broad player in transportation.
We think that the power business of the past is going to be disrupted and replaced with something that is much closer to a business where it can play to our strengths.
Pure innovation can inspire people and translate into a lot of good sense into the good life. She'll bring a lot of cleaner energy into the market to contribute to the beautiful life.
Navigating the energy transition, particularly in the transportation sector, but not confined to it, is going to require innovation on the largest scale I think humanity has ever seen it.
We also need to understand that there are other players in our business, not only just traditional players, non-traditional players like Amazon, Alibaba coming into the business and trying to get to the customers, even to our customers, with offers that are more integrated, perhaps easier to understand.
The opportunity that we have is to take customer centricity to a new level in Shell, where we're able to work across the different businesses to get a much more holistic view of all the things that we can be doing to meet customers' needs.
I often find that we focus on customers based on how we are organized. But in all my years of Shell, particularly the ones in the front line, I never had one customer ever asking me, how are you organized? They don't care. They see one Shell and they see one person or one portal being the face of Shell. We need to understand that much better. The other thing which I think is that from a culture standpoint, we should really adapt ourselves to the speed and the agility which this world requires. We do it at home. When it comes into Shell, sometimes I believe we want to touch base with a lot of people, whereas often we can actually take that mandate ourselves. It's not just around the products we sell, it's very much that the full range of activities that we can offer to a customer based on their needs, not on what we think they should have.
What is it that we need to do in Shell to make it a seamless experience, probably a very digital experience in terms of how they interact with us, and thinking about how we create value end to end across all the different parts of Shell.
So listening to them will give us a better understanding of what they actually want rather than something else. These days, customers are so diverse and have so much different interests that listening and working to them, then working backwards, is probably a much better proposition.
We are not coming up with solutions that suits us or processes that makes us happy. We try to be coming up with solutions what they like.
The biggest impact we can make on society is to decarbonize the energy that we are using. That makes up about 80 to 85% of the total emissions of the value chain. It's those products that our customers are using. If we are to thrive through the energy transition, which we will, and we've made the commitment to do that, we have to start investing in those new energy businesses that we've taught, because that is going to become our future. So it's playing in those integrated energy systems which is so important. So the more green electricity we can have, the more biofuels and the more hydrogen in the mix, that's ultimately what will make the major difference. And that's why Shell is also pushing in those particular areas to make all of those lower carbon fuels available to all of our customers across the world.
So you heard from quite a few of the leaders from Shell. And for the people in the room who don't really know what are the different businesses that Shell is into, we are quite a diverse business entity, right? So we play in the traditional oil and gas, which is basically you look at oil and oil refined products and chemicals that we sell. When we speak about refined products of oil, it includes lubricants, it includes fuel, all of different types and grades. So it's about building and producing products that play to customer segments across the different industry verticals. Could be B2B segments, automobiles, mining, agriculture, transportation. So various different industries who use our products. And in the B2C segment, where it's consumers like you or I who have been using either lubricants for our cars or petrol and diesel for our vehicles and so on. We also, as I said, play in the B2B space where there is a huge trading and supply business, which is all about building in leverage for our customers in terms of the various commodity products that we trade in, be it oil or oil products. So as you can see, it's quite a diverse set of businesses, and even currently, without even looking at the energy transition that you heard, there are quite a few instances where the same end customer is having business relationships with Shell and engaging in the purchase of products and services going forward in more than one area, which means if you look at, let's say you or I as a customer, we buy lubricants, which is one business in Shell, or we might buy fuel, which is another business in Shell, which we call retail. But if you go back to what Hybert, who is our EVP for Global Commercial, was mentioning, nobody really talks about how is Shell organized internally. They don't really care. All that they expect is great quality product that meets their needs and outstanding service in consuming that product or service, right? So the genesis of the business is all about making sure we understand what our customers are seeking of us or asking of us, and then making sure we bring them to life and provide it in the most frictionless, seamless experience as possible. Some facts and numbers to talk about the size and extent of our customer interaction: more than 100 million B2C customers, more than 1 million B2B customers, over 5,000 distributor locations, 44,000 sites in which we sell our fuel and non-fuel retail, which is your convenience shops or the coffees and croissants that you would have picked up in one of our Shell Go sites, and increasingly a lot of gig workers who work with us to help deliver the products and services that we sell into the market. So as I mentioned, it always starts with looking at what does the customer want. So it's not about looking internally, but starting to look external to say, what is the need and how do we better meet those needs? And what you see here on the slide is a high-level articulation / summary of what we believe are the asks of our customer. And you would note that if you look at it, the customer is not saying, I need petrol, or I need diesel, I need lubricants, or I need polyethylene as a chemical. But it's always about what is the end outcome or end result that the respective customer or consumer is looking to drive, and how can Shell be a player and a partner in getting to that outcome. So it could be in the context of either improving the business performance, if you look at a B2B customer. It could be in the area of providing and facilitating transportation and mobility. It could be in the area of making sure that Shell as an entity understands the totality of the relationship that we have with our customer, and then making sure that we reward them. So whole concept of loyalty and cross-sharing of value, et cetera, starts coming into play. It could be about making sure that we keep that experience frictionless, smooth, and as convenient as possible for that entity or that end individual to do business with Shell. So these are basically the principles or tenets that we try to gravitate all of our engagements and products and services around. Now, using those tenets, there are various different initiatives or actions that Shell have taken to make sure that we meet the demands and needs of our customer, but as I said, do it in a responsible manner, working with the energy transition that we need to drive to make sure that the planet is a greener and cleaner one going forward. So it could be in the area of leveraging the technology that we have. So Shell has a huge R&D function, which is looking at how do we make our products more cleaner? So how do we ensure that every liter of fuel that we burn is cleaner and is more energy efficient? How do we make sure that the products that we build are future-proof, is meeting the needs of the future? So as vehicles are becoming more and more electric, we have come out with products which are lubricants, but for electric vehicles, which is one of the first in the market. We're looking at lubricants which were traditionally made out of crude or oil, and we have now started making lubricants which are actually made out of liquefied gas, which is 70–80% cleaner and more efficient than lubricants made out of oil. So there's a lot of R&D work that's going on in making sure that we are producing products that is addressing the needs of the environment and the customer. Digitizing the core. So leveraging technology and using technology as a backbone to deliver cutting-edge services to our customers is another big strategy or agenda for Shell. So it started off with using technology for own internal value chain. So the various different assets that we have across the world, be it assets onshore or offshore in terms of oil rigs, and using that to understand the assets better, and then subsequently making sure that the data that we collect out of them is used to improve the operational efficiency of the assets, which is now starting to become even a service for our customers. So if you look at some of our investments in companies like Machine Max, which is a joint venture initiative, it's about building in IoT sensors on fleet customers, or for that matter, any customer who has an operating asset, and giving the ability to understand the operational parameters and metrics of those assets, and then applying analytics and AI on top of it to start talking about how do you intervene proactively if required to make sure that you improve the efficiency of the asset. We're also using technology to drive new business models. So as I said, if you look at the traditional oil and gas business, it's quite a product-oriented business. Now, going forward, it's important that we start moving beyond just delivering a product to building services that sits around the product, which plays to the customer needs that we spoke about. So if you look at something like LubeChat, for example, it's an additional seamless interface that's been created for the customers to engage with Shell, either to understand more, so create awareness and ensure that they get a better understanding of the different products that not just Shell has, but products that are needed by the customer to do their business as well. It could be services like TapUp or AccuPort, which are in the area of retail or marine, where we provide lubrications to vessels and bunkers and tankers to make sure that people can proactively manage the operations of the vessels. So there are various different services that are now being built around the core products that we sell. We spoke about the changing energy ecosystem and the integrated energy ecosystem that John Abbott was referring to. Now, we as Shell, as I said, are truly committed to making sure our energy portfolio moves away from being a pure oil and gas to an integrated energy ecosystem that has oil and gas and power coming from unconventional sources. And hence, if you look at some of the newer initiatives, be it in terms of hydrogen fuel vehicles, or you look at electric vehicles, and I think there was a session yesterday which spoke about Recharge and Recharge Plus, and how we are setting up electric vehicle charging stations in a few of the countries that we play in. It could be biofuels that are either ethanol-based, which makes, when added with petrol, makes petrol far more greener and cleaner, or it could be biodiesel that is made out of oils and fats. So there are a lot of work that's going on, and in addition, if you look at some of the newer businesses that we are getting into, when you talk about from an energy generation perspective, there are companies like Clean Tech Solar that we've invested in, which produces one of the largest footprint of solar energy in Southeast Asia. We have invested in quite a few solar farms in Europe and in US. So there are a lot of investments that's going on in creating power that's outside of the traditional oil and gas ecosystem. So that's about making sure that we generate clean energy. Then you would also need to ensure that those clean energy then gets serviced to customers like you and I, or B2B customers, which is where some of our newer acquisitions in this area, if you look at New Motion, which is an electric vehicle charging service of charging stations that's set up across Europe and the UK. You look at companies like Sonnen, which is a company that builds batteries or power storage solutions for both B2B and B2C businesses. You look at companies like First Utility, which we bought over and just recently rebranded as Shell Energy in the UK. It provides electricity, gas, and additional utility services to customers at home. So there are a lot of these additional expansion of portfolio that we have done as part of the new energy business. And there is a very clear commitment of investing close to $2 billion per annum to build out our new energy portfolio. So if you summarize all of that, you see that the play that Shell has is becoming wider and wider and more encompassing when you look at the entire energy value chain, and is becoming a much healthier mix of oil and gas and power. Now, what does this mean? If you look at oil and gas and typical products that we buy, it's, I would say, relatively easy to differentiate just from a product perspective. So I could say that Shell V-Power gives you better mileage because there are additives in it, and you can probably touch and feel and relate to it to say why that product is different from a normal diesel or petrol that you might buy. But when it comes to power, power is an intangible. If we claim that the electrons that come from Shell spins faster than the electron given by Bescom, I'm sure you're going to laugh at me, right? Or if I tell you that the electricity that we provide is going to make your phone battery last longer or your washing machine to run better, it's not going to work. So power is a commodity. It's not like the oil and gas products that we traditionally sell. So the differentiation and competitive edge comes in terms of how do you then provide that power as a service, and how do you then integrate not just the power services or products that we provide, but I wouldn't probably call it bundling, but integrating them along with the rest of the offerings that Shell provides in either the oil and gas or the extension that we're making in providing services like utilities, or if you look at the UK market, for example, we have gone into partnerships with Google Nest, etc., which helps in home automation and solutions that's beyond just the power value chain. So our need to understand the customer's needs and experiences becomes far more prominent and important in the context of this change, because we need to start differentiating ourselves for our customer in a way which we have never done in the past. So this slide pretty much gives you a plethora of the various different offerings or services that Shell, in fact, currently gets into. If you look at the UK market, pretty much most of it is actually currently live. We supply gas, electricity, and broadband as part of First Utility or Shell Energy that I spoke about. We have charging posts and charging networks for electric vehicles as part of the New Motion acquisition that we have done. We have home automation solutions, as is mentioned. We have housing bill management using a company called Wonderbill. And then we have the traditional oil and gas that we know of, which is the fuel and the non-fuel products that we sell at our Shell retail stations. So ability to understand the customer in totality becomes super important for us to then start bringing in personalized and tailored offerings back into our customer ecosystem. Now so that's a bit about business context. I haven't really spoken about IT directly, but if you look at most of these business innovations and the strategy that we spoke about in terms of energy transition and how Shell is transforming itself, it should be quite apparent that IT plays a foundational backbone to pretty much all of that. This slide is just a simple encapsulation of some of the key facts, but just to highlight the width and breadth and the proliferation of IT across the various different business entities and geographies that we operate in, and the complex nature of the technology backbone that we would need to manage to deliver all of those experiences and business outcomes that we spoke about. So what does this mean for us in Shell IT? So while you have the IT strategy and the pyramid that speaks about it, what you will find is focus on business value and business outcomes is the single most important objective for all of us in IT. So it sits fairly and squarely in the center of our strategy. And if you look at business value and how do we deliver business value, there are kind of three aspects or components of it. There is an element of what we call run, which is basically giving us the license to operate. It's ensuring that the entire estate runs smoothly, seamlessly, the operations have a great degree of excellence and efficiency built into it. Then comes the grow part of the business, which is how do we make sure that the existing businesses that we are in is fully supported for its respective growth plans and ambitions, ensuring that we generate profitability and cash for the organization, and as I spoke about earlier, increase and improve the customer centricity of whatever we do as Shell. And the last component is what we call transform. So we spoke about newer business models, the whole move from products to services to ecosystems development, and IT, again, plays a very key and critical role in making sure that we're able to support the business in leapfrog and extend itself into all of those areas. Let's look at one of the examples of how IT and business have worked together seamlessly, and the role of BAs within the IT community that has helped deliver one of a key product or outcome against a certain customer need.
Shell currently use two different systems to capture our data at airports. Both of the systems we currently have are old, so this project started really to replace our current systems with a newer, more up-to-date system.
When we looked at the available solutions in the marketplace, there was nothing comparable with what we wanted to do. But rather than build a solution just for Shell, we thought this was an opportunity for an innovative approach in the market to create a market standard. And we worked with SAP to share the risk of doing that.
We basically mapped out how we were going to build functionality over time to be able to meet the existing capabilities of our systems, but ultimately also leapfrog ahead of that as well.
Airlines are not making money unless their aircraft are in the sky, so it's a very, very time-pressured environment. Customers really want Shell to be easy to do business with.
We went from having something which was paper and Excel kind of based to something that ultimately was tablets. These are for operators that are on the ground, so we have to make it as easy and user-friendly as intuitive as possible.
I think the technological advances in the SkyPad solution are about the way we've been able to integrate all of the activity in the fueling into the solution, from the operator's ability to enter the meter readings, to getting electronic proof of delivery, so the pilot's actually signing the SkyPad on the apron, to us being able to print out the delivery ticket if needed through a Bluetooth connected printer, and the Internet of Things to capture that data in real time, passing it to the HANA Cloud platform and feeding it into our GSAP solution for invoicing.
It is an intrinsically safe Zone 1 tablet, which we can use anywhere around the airport and the refueling.
The idea is that as we have real-time data on exactly which customers we are refueling when, how much has been uplifted where in the world, as we get that in, it unlocks huge potential in terms of what we can do around our price risk management and our price risking exposure. It also means that we really have their finger on the pulse of our operations on the ground, and the SkyPad is that hand that grabs the data. It's the lens into which we can look at our operations on the ground.
In some cases, it was taking 24 to 48 hours for data to get from the apron actually into SAP. Now it's like that.
It's well liked by the operators on the airport, and it delivers a huge amount of efficiency to our operations, and also provides us a platform for future growth.
We think we can unlock around $9 million a year of efficiency savings across the 150 airports in Shell.
So that's really helped and supported some of our sales and marketing people. And I think, as we bring more and more sites onto this, I think we're going to have some value-based conversations about what that is bringing and how that's helping us going forward.
We are already engaging with customers to ask them to go paperless with us. So we are showing Shell really being a leader in the industry and driving the whole aviation industry, not just the fuel providers, to a really digital future.
Even though this has been a great project and a fantastic stepping stone, it's only one step on our journey.
As soon as we implemented SkyPad, our airport errors all dropped to zero because the technology is doing the verification and customers can be assured that their invoices are always right first time.
I think looking at the SkyPad solution, the key messages are how we've brought together an ecosystem of suppliers to deliver different components of the solution, how we've taken an iterative approach to delivery and rollout, and how we've integrated a number of different technologies into an end-to-end solution that delivers real business value.
So that was quite a powerful example, isn't it? So if you just play back some of the aspects of the solution and how it was being built, I think it will resonate a lot to what we believe is the role and the value that a business analysis organization or a team brings to the table. So we started off with first understanding the business. So you actually had people from IT and business talking as part of that video. But it'll be very difficult for you to differentiate who is from IT and who is from business, right? The amount of business understanding that people carried really differentiates them from the rest of the typical IT folks, so as to say. So personally for me, I would say understanding and knowing your business, the pulse of the business, the drivers, the strategy of the business becomes super important for a business analyst to do his or her job effectively. Next comes the part of making sure that you build that relationship with your business counterpart to then start working together as one team. And again, that example showed great one team mindset and working together to understand the problem, distill the problem, and then start looking at ways to address that problem. And the problem statement was quite clear, right? It was about making sure that we maximize the amount of time that a flight spends in the sky. That is the customer problem or business performance outcome that we had to address. And this collective team did a great job of understanding that and then building capabilities that met that. And the way this was built, if you look at what Tim was talking about, saying we looked external, we didn't find anything that really met it, and then we started looking at how do we partner with our ecosystem players to build solutions that are market standard. So as a business analyst, it's also important that you start playing the hat of both a quasi-business professional who understands the needs of the business, but not get enamored by technology and kind of being the guardian and custodian of how do we bring technology to the fore to ensure we are using technology in the most safe, secure, reliable, and scalable fashion. So looking at the external ecosystem, bringing in insights, and being measured in terms of how we identify opportunities of leveraging technology plays a key part of the role of, say, a business analyst. And hence, collaboration, understanding technology, needs discovery, and then bringing all of them together to ensure we go behind value, but go behind value in an iterative sequential approach. Right? Gone are the days when we can actually run projects which are multi-year long, which have outcomes or value realization happening only at the end of a 12-month or a 24-month period. It's important that we now start looking at iterative, quick-to-value solutions, or could even be cases where we experiment and realize that's not the direction that we need to progress, and we would need to change course to do something else to get to the value that we want to. So the role of a BA and an IT professional large will need to change and encompass all of these aspects and ensure that the partnership that we have with the business is powerful, impactful enough, and we do the right thing with technology in getting to those outcomes. So there are a few more slides that I have in terms of talking through what does this mean, but in the interest of time, I'm probably going to end my presentation here, and that should give a fair sense of what's Shell into, what's our strategy, how are we transforming, and how does IT and the BA community play a very key and important role in powering this transformation within Shell. So with that, I'll do a short video of what we call Shell Make the Future video, which is summarizing, as I said, the ethos and essence of what Shell is all about, and then I'll open it up for questions. Oops.
This is not just another film about Shell. It's about every one of you watching, and about every person out there, which includes our families, our friends. This is a film about the world we all share. It's about 7 billion of us, becoming 8 billion soon, and then 9 billion. And about every single one of us needing energy to prosper. Because the absence of energy limits choices. Its presence creates them. Our world needs more energy so that individuals, communities, and countries may attain or sustain socio-economic progress. But the way energy is currently provided and used is contributing to climate change, which threatens the well-being of current and future generations. Our world needs more and cleaner energy. This, we know, is a huge global undertaking, which requires collaboration with government, industry, society. And we are up for the challenge, because innovation and care are in our DNA. Taking on challenges to help the world progress is what we have done since the day we started. This is about every one of us working relentlessly every single day to power progress together by providing more and cleaner energy solutions. Let's make the future.
Thank you. Q&A. First question is probably the most difficult one. There we go.
Hi Vijay, good morning and thank you for a great presentation.
Sorry, can you hold the mic a bit closer? I'm not able
to.
Yeah.
Thank you Vijay for the great presentation. So I'm one of your colleagues from the upstream. I just want to know that Shell is doing so much in doing like electrical vehicles or battery charging and hydrogen and other things in non-fossil fuels. I just want to know what is the plan of Shell for India? Like India is going toward the non-fossil fuels, electric vehicle, even the government is helping us out in many of the schemes. So what is Shell's plan for India?
Yeah, so you're talking specifically in the electric zone or Shell India?
Shell India, non-fossil fuel, downstream retail basically, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say it's early days for us in India from an electric ecosystem or energy ecosystem perspective. One, it's a highly regulated industry. And number two, if you look at the infrastructure that's currently out there, there needs to be a lot of both public and private sector partnership that needs to come in to make sure we increase the infrastructure presence that's going to then subsequently support the electrification of be it mobility or increase in electrification from a B2C consumption at home or from a B2B perspective. So I can't really talk about the plans out here, but I would say India is one of the key focus area markets for Shell, along with a few of the other strategic markets that we focus in. And it is something that we would need to work and watch along with the government to see how the industry progresses.
Thank you.
Hi Vijay.
Yeah.
This is Balakrishnan. So when you say we are taking a customer-centric approach, so be it aviation or marine industry, so what is the ratio where the customers or aviation or marine industry accept this digital technologies when you take it to them?
So what is the ratio?
I mean, how they are taking this digital technology. So marine or aviation industry is very traditional way of going papers and all these things. How they are accepting is these digital factors.
Yeah. So I think we need to start with the proposition of saying, why are we doing what we're doing, right? So the moment we make that proposition clear, so if you look at the aviation example, I think it's a very apt example for the question that you asked in terms of an industry that is pretty much run on legacy and logbooks and how they used to operate.
Right.
There was a very compelling proposition of saying, how do I increase the time in the sky by reducing the turnaround time and improving the efficiency of operation on the ground, on the tarmac for the airports and for the aircrafts. So once you have a clear conversation partnership with your customer to talk about why a digitalization of a certain process or the introduction of a certain technology is going to be helpful, then the uptake normally comes through. And it is a journey. You need to go through the process of education, awareness building, and even, as I said, recharting ourselves in terms of how the technology should finally land. And it's a change management process that one needs to go through. So if you look at marine that you very specifically asked, so AccuPort is one of the offerings which is, again, looking at providing lubrication services to marine. And it's still early days, but we're seeing quite some good interest. As long as you can make the business outcome and the business proposition clear, then those conversations become easier.
Thanks.
There's a question.
There's a question there.
Hi Vijay, good morning. Very thankful for a great presentation. My question is related to environmental aspects of Shell. Wanted to understand how we are working on circular economy and extended producers' responsibility, and if we are working, and how it is improving our customers' experience being with Shell.
I'm going to be honest, so I don't have a lot of details about how we work with circular economy, where we're working with either our partners or suppliers to ensure we reduce a carbon footprint. But what I can definitely tell you is we are doing a lot in terms of creating carbon sinks. So in Europe, for example, every customer has the optionality to pay a little bit more as part of every fuel purchase transaction that they do, which we then plow back into afforestation across the globe. So there are efforts like these that Shell is investing into. And in 2018, we have spent over $100 million in terms of doing good for the society, not necessarily in the area of CO2 management alone, but in terms of educating, awareness building, and building greater energy solutions for the community at large. So I know it probably answers your question partially, but there is a lot of effort in making sure that we reduce our total net carbon footprint. Incidentally, from this year, total net carbon footprint reduction is part of the performance metrics of our senior leadership. And there is a target to reduce it by 2 to 3% over the next 3 years as compared to the 2016 numbers that Shell had. So it's definitely one of the key focus and priority areas for us.
One last question, please.
Hi, my name is Deepthi.
Hi.
My question is quite specific to Shell Retail. I understand from the new up-and-coming Shell Retail outlets within Bangalore that there's an expansion or market expansion plans that are in place. However, the question that I have stems from multiple conversations I have had, so it's not as a business analyst, but more of a customer point of view. The question that keeps arising is that the fuel prices that Shell has within India is always approximately 3 to 4 rupees higher than the competitors. Now, I understand that strategically placing these retail outlets in spaces where there are no petrol stations for about 3 to 4 kilometers is a great move. But in the long run, how does Shell plan on competing with the likes of Indian Oil or HP in terms of the pricing strategy within India?
Okay. So if you look at the pricing strategy, it's based on what we believe is the right value for the product proposition that we provide. So it goes back to the efficiency of the fuel and all the goodness that comes with it in terms of how it runs your car, etc. Right? So I can't really comment on why is our fuel 3 rupees costlier than Indian Oil, but there is a certain proposition that we believe in be it Shell V-Power or the normal fuel that we sell, and hence we believe the pricing that we have is appropriate for the customer base that we are targeting. Your second question was how will we compete with Indian Oil if we start having Shell petrol pumps nearby. So I can only talk of as a consumer there. So if you look at the Shell fuel station in Belandur, you have an Indian Oil fuel station that's hardly 500 meters away across the road. So it's not that our strategy is find a catchment area where you have absolute non-compete and you have a locked-in customer base. It's about making sure that Shell has a certain brand that we live up to in terms of the quality of the fuel that we provide. And we believe no matter where we are, we will be able to ensure that that proposition and that quality that we provide will appeal to a certain segment of our customer base, and we will be able to grow that market.
Time up. I'll be the bad man again.
Great. Thank you. Thanks
But
for the time,
before you
guys.
go on,
and
before you go off the stage, Vijay, I couldn't resist myself. I had to come on the stage. With so much learning in this session, I just want to summarize that. I think it was phenomenal. One of the biggest challenge that the community sitting in this room is their understanding of why a business or their corporate or their customers are doing what they're doing, right? And the understanding of the business strategy of what drives them in an organization. I think that was very well articulated. I hope it gives a great sense of how a corporate thinks in terms of what to do in their day-to-day engagement. That was first part. The second part is the variety of customers that you're dealing with. I think the customer centricity is not just about one size fits all. It's about the nature of customers in the business context that you're dealing with. And how do you really contextualize the offerings and the solutions and solve their true needs. I think that was one of my second takeaway. Phenomenal. And third, what it means to the business analysis community here, right? Of course, you couldn't deep dive, but the way it was laid out, it's not about toolkit, it's not about methodology, it's not about frameworks that BA community uses it, but broadly in terms of how the kind of skill sets that are needed for one to really drive the value to the end customer of a large corporate. I think these were phenomenal learning. So I'd like to give a great round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity and have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank
Thank you.